Our next chapter, see if you guys can see that. Yeah. Our next chapter is, or section is 1-4, adding and subtracting with unlike denominators. It's getting us really comfortable with fractions and what they mean and being able to work with them and manipulate them. So in a previous video, I mentioned that the bottom number of a fraction is the size of a piece that you have. It's actually the number of pieces you need to make one whole. So if my denominator was 10, I would need 10 pieces to make a whole. Now the top number is the number that you have. I'm going to say how many you have. How many pieces you have. So if I broke a candy bar up into, let's do 6 pieces, and I gave 3 of them away, I only have 3 out of 6 pieces. That reduces down to I have half of my candy bar, okay? If I gave 4 pieces away, then I would only have 2 out of 6 pieces, and that would reduce down to 1/3 of my candy bar. Now, if I broke up my candy bar and I didn't give any pieces away, I have 6 out of 6 pieces, and that makes 1 whole candy bar. So hopefully you guys see how that works, right? Number of pieces you have, and then the size of piece would tell you on the bottom. The bigger the number, the smaller the piece is kind of how I like to think of it. Really, it depends on what you're talking about. So if I had a candy bar and I broke it up into 20 pieces, those pieces are going to be a lot smaller. So I like to say the size of the piece, but really it's talking about the number of pieces you need to make a whole, okay? If I have 20 pieces, I have 1 whole. So I'm going to do a little bit of a visual right over here. Let's say I have this candy bar, and I don't have enough room there, so I have this candy bar. All right? Now this candy bar, I'm going to say, all right, I'm breaking it in, not a good half, but half. Sorry, I'm breaking it in half. I have half here and I have half here. This candy bar, on the other hand, I am going to break it up into 6. So I have 1/6 here, I have 1/6 here, I have 1/6 here, I have 1/6 here, 1/6 here, and 1/6 here. This one, if I had both of these pieces, I would have a whole candy bar. This one, if I had all 6 of these pieces, I would have a whole candy bar. So when we are adding and subtracting with unlike denominators, we have got to get that denominator, that bottom number, to be the same, because I can't add this 1/6 and this half and be like, all right, I got 2 pieces. I don't have 2 of the same size of pieces, so I really can't combine them. So what I would want to do is I would want to take this piece and I would want to cut it up into thirds so that I really have 1/6 here. And I know it doesn't look like it's the same because I cut them a little bit different. That's okay. 1/6 here and 1/6 here. The reason why those are 1/6, because if I did the same thing over on this side, it would give me that total of 6 pieces to make that whole. Do you guys see that? Hopefully you see that, I guess. So I have to cut them up. So if I said 1/2 plus 1/6, I have to try and get this denominator to match this one. Now, easiest way to do it is start with the biggest number. And start writing multiples of it. And then eventually you're going to hit a number that the smaller one will go into. So start writing multiples of it until you hit one, until you get to one that the other numbers will go into. Okay, so I'm going to show you what I mean by that. So 6, 12, 18, 24, so on and so forth. So I would do a bunch of the bigger numbers multiples. So I'm going up higher, right? Now, eventually I'm going to come across one that this 2 will get into. Well, I'll notice that my first one, 2 can get to 6. So I want to make sure that my 2 gets to 6. So I'm going to times it by 3, but realize I'm not changing the value, I am manipulating it so that I can work with it. So I can't just say, okay, I have 1/6. That's not what I have in a half. I have 3/6. So because I times the bottom by 3, I times the top by 3, making sure I'm not changing the value, just manipulating the numbers so they're easy to work with. So 1 times 3 is 3, 2 times 3 is 6. I now have 3/6, which is my half. I'm adding 1/6 to it. And now, whenever you're adding or subtracting and you have your common denominators, you keep that denominator and then you just do what it tells you to do up on top. In this particular case, it's 3 plus 1, giving me 4, and I can reduce at this point. 2 goes into both of them. So 4 times 2 is 2. 4 divided by 2 is 2. 6 divided by 2 is 3. So I have 2/3 of a candy bar if I combine those two pieces. I'm going to ask you guys a really quick question just so I can see if you guys are understanding this or not, and then we'll move on to the next section.